department, the Department of Natural Resources. And the philosophy was to introduce more native plant species into the park system and to develop some of the sites into what we know of as more natural ecosystems like woods, prairies, and wetlands. At the time that they did this, the lake levels of Lake Michigan were at historic lows. So out here on the beach, it was a much wider beach, and there were some plant species that started to colonize the beach, and they were few and scattered, but some of us found them very interesting. I was a longtime birder at Montrose, and I took a particular interest at the east end of the beach, where I saw some natural processes at work. And I started to develop a vision for this area. Now, part of this Natural Areas program was inviting citizens to participate in the management of these areas and also develop community-based stewardship. So I had no idea what was involved in being a steward, but I accepted the Park District's invitation. From that moment on, the Chicago Park District and I embarked on an adventure that has been more exciting, surprising, rewarding, and growthful than anything we could have ever imagined. Today, the Chicago Park District has 102 natural areas, many of high quality, and probably the most is Montrose Beach Dunes, which now has a state designation, the Illinois Natural Areas Inventory, because the site contains many elements of Illinois' natural heritage. It has hundreds of native plant species, including 28 federally and state endangered or threatened plant species, hundreds of migratory birds that stop over and use the site, 13 nesting bird species, including a large bank swallow colony of almost 100 nests, a globally imperiled wetland type that only occurs around the Great Lakes, and finally, a volunteer base of almost 1,000 people, citizens of Chicago from all over the region, who come out 8 months of the year to work in, hands-on, and maintain and protect this site. Now, the Park District has been nationally recognized for this community-based stewardship model, and it is a shining example of a successful public-private partnership. Now, 3 years ago, a pair of Great Lakes piping plovers arrived at Montrose Beach, an endangered species with an incredibly small population. These birds looked around and decided to start a family here. The species is site faithful, so they have returned to this beach in the dunes for 3 years in a row. Last summer, because of the intensive use by the plovers of an area that was right next to our dunes, they placed their nests there the first year, and they also used it intensively for foraging and raising their young. I asked the Park District to add this habitat to the dunes, about 3.1 acres. Now, that was a big ask. So the Park District took its time, consulted many groups. There's many user groups here at the beach. The regional bird clubs, conservation organizations, the aldermen, and with tremendous support, they made the decision this past April to add this addition to Montrose Beach Dunes. Of course, we were all thrilled and just amazed that this has happened. But the best thing was that about 3 weeks later, the breeding plovers, Monty and Rose, arrived back in Chicago from their wintering grounds in Texas and Florida. So they looked around and checked out the real estate here, and they headed straight for the habitat addition and put their nest right in the middle of it and laid 4 eggs. There can be no stronger affirmation of the wisdom of the Park District's decision than the reaction of these birds to this habitat. So this is the area now that we see behind us. There are many people who want to thank the Park District today. For myself, I want to say that personally and professionally, it is such an honor to stand here with you 20 years later and take in all that we have accomplished. And I express my heartfelt thanks to the district for trusting in my vision and giving me the opportunity to be your steward and to find and do my life's work. Thank you. And now I want to turn it over to Louise Clemency, the field supervisor for the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, who have been huge partners with us in the piping plover breeding program.
On behalf of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Great Lakes Piping Plover Recovery Program, I have so many people to thank. First of all, Leslie, who just spoke, and the other habitat stewards, and the hundreds of volunteers that have helped monitor the plovers and restore the habitat and pick up little pieces of plastic on the beach and show the plovers to maybe thousands of beachgoers over the past couple of years. So thank you to all of you. And then I especially want to thank the Chicago Park District, without whom none of this would have been possible. And all the ways that they have helped us, seen and unseen, across the board, the whole organization, from the maintenance staff and the beach groomers, all the way up to the people in the front office. Thank you, Mike, and the business people, to the biologist who was an important part of our piping plover team this summer, including her efforts to help rescue that fourth unhatched egg that we took to the Lincoln Park Zoo to bring back and release. And that fourth chick that hatched from the Lincoln Park Zoo is out there running around on the beach right now. So I want to talk about the significance of this habitat here in Chicago, at a busy beach in the middle of the city. The Chicago public has a chance to view the nesting of an endangered piping plover, its full cycle, its successes, its sometimes failures, and contribute to changing the whole trajectory of the population. I think a lot of people know that one of the 3 chicks fledged last summer off of the beach here came back this summer to a beach in Ohio and started the first nest in Ohio outside Toledo in over 80 years. And they've successfully fledged 4 chicks. So our success story here is part of a bigger Great Lakes-wide recovery of the piping plover. And we couldn't have done it without the Park District Natural Areas Program. I'm going to introduce now my co-lead in endangered species recovery, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources Endangered Species Recovery Specialist, Brad Semmel.
Thank you, Louise. It's a real pleasure to be here today. This is really a culmination of many years of work, and especially to Leslie, who really initiated the protection and the stewardship of the Montrose Beach. Montrose are very well recognized among the Chicago population. When you read about it in the newspaper and other media outlets. But I think it's a real testament to the individuals who worked to protect this Montrose Beach Dunes. Here we are in juxtaposition of the 3rd largest metropolitan area in the country, and yet we still have these significant wetlands, 4 dunes and beaches behind us. And really, Monty and Rose are the ambassadors to really show just how special Montrose Dunes and Montrose Beach is. There's a whole community of other species that are present here and really are indicative of the natural heritage that this lake shore used to support. So here we have this little living museum, and you can go to, again, a museum like the Field Museum and see these panoramas and of the beachfront. But here you have a living panorama of the ambassadors to this wonderful habitat. And so without Monty and Rose really being the ambassadors, and this additional 3 acres that was protected as part of the natural area, really more shorebirds. There's many species of shorebirds that visit the area now. This is a protected beach, free from dogs and human disturbance. And you can tell that the birds and other wildlife that occur here are taking advantage of this little part of our natural heritage. And so I just wanted to thank all the partners here, in particular the Chicago Park District. There's so many conflicting interests when you come to a parcel of land in downtown Chicago, and for them to recognize just how important it is to the natural heritage, it's very significant. So I'd like to thank the Chicago Park District and their staff and all those involved to allow us to eke out just a few more acres here on the beachfront to allow this microcosm of Lake Michigan to persist. Now I'd like to introduce Judy Pollock from the Chicago Audubon Society.
Thanks, Brad. So I'm from Chicago Audubon Society, so we're entering the part of the program where the local birding organizations have something to say. And as you can tell by all the people standing up here, this was an enormous team effort. And I want to say that I, like Leslie, have been around since this dune here looked exactly like that. Just the whole thing was completely flat and groomed all the way to the end. There were no dunes here. And this area here looked exactly like that. So it was just straight lawn with a few little lollipop trees in it. And that transformation has been amazing to watch over 20 years. And people like Leslie and others from the stewardship community and people from the bird conservation community have really kept their eye on the ball of what's been important for birds, what birds need. And it's been really a decades-long conversation with the Park District, in which the Park District has been very responsive, and together we've made changes and more changes and more changes and really learned, push the limits of what we can do for birds. And I think that these plovers showing up just really demonstrates the power of that partnership. You know, government and local community members working together to try to create something for conservation. The Park District has a million different directions that it's pulled in, right? It does concerts, it takes care of kids after school, and, you know, does volleyball, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, a long, long list. But they really take their responsibilities as stewards of the earth seriously. And the Park District owns the most number of miles of beachfront, of lakefront property in Illinois. And lake is a really important habitat. And they've taken their responsibility to that seriously and developed this beautiful natural beach, not just here, but up and down the lakefront. So I give them a lot of credit for it. And of course, give Leslie a lot of credit, glad that she really had a chance to tell her story, which is a wonderful story and very typical of the Chicago conservation community. You know, thank you and congratulations to everyone. And I want to introduce Edward Warden, who's the president of Chicago Ornithological Society.
Hello, my name is Edward Warden. I am president of Chicago Ornithological Society, and I haven't been around quite that long, but I can speak to the global significance of the site. What we have here isn't just about plovers, it's about making a statement. We know that the planet is changing, whether you're talking about climate change or some other environmental factor, and we don't know what that future brings. But what we do know is that a big battleground going forward is where the human environment and nature meet. Here in cities like Chicago, this is really significant as we decide and try to figure out what does this future hold for us? How do we bring the future of conservation home for everyone, make nature accessible for everyone? And I would like to point out that here, like I said, it's not just about plovers, it's about making sure that we're not only participants in that process, that evolution, determining what that future looks like, but leaders. So I would just like to end my comment very quickly by saying thank you, Chicago Park District, all of you folks here who worked so hard to make this possible, to lead not only our community, our region, and our planet, be a leader in determining what comes next. What does the future of conservation hold? This is it. Thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Bob Dolgan now.
Hi everybody, I'm Bob Dolgan. I'm a filmmaker and plover monitor. I've made now 2 films about Monty and Rose and told their story. I think what's amazing about this is when I started out here as a plover monitor 2 years ago, it was just a few people standing around, literally physically acting as barriers for the plovers which had just scraped their first nest and stunned everybody by landing here in Chicago. But really, that was not, it's not totally happenstance that they were here. It really is a testament to the vision of the Park District and of Leslie, Judy, and others who have maintained and expanded these natural areas over the past 20 plus years.
And some of the champions. And I remember walking these grounds, and I do have perspective of what was there then versus what's there now. And it is an amazing phenomenon what Monty and Rose have done, not only for awareness and for this area, but just for kids. You know, it's August in Chicago, so a lot of folks, I think they see me or they see the Park District when I think summer camp. thinking beaches, they're thinking summer, they're thinking Lollapalooza, right? But you know, we are a city in the garden, and this is a big part of what we are. It's natural areas and volunteers. I'm the chairman of the board of the National Rec and Park Association, and I can assure you that not only in Chicago, but in every city across the country, if we didn't have volunteers, if we didn't have stewards, we simply couldn't pull it off. So I want to thank all you guys, again, for all your efforts now and in the future. Those 3.1 acres, it is not easy to dedicate 3.1 acres from one cause to another. But it is part of what we're trying to do, which is get to 2,020 acres by 2020. It's flipped a little bit, but I'll tell you what, we had less than 300 acres 15 years ago, and now we're at, what is it, Pat, almost 2,000 acres citywide. We're going to get there. It might not be 2020, but it might be 2022. And those 3.1 acres are precious to them. I'll leave you with, you know, government doesn't always move as fast as people want. Neither does Mother Nature. But I think this project and others are a testament that, you know what, if you give government and Mother Nature time, we can actually deliver. And we can actually make something beautiful. And I think we did that here. I think now we're going to go on a little bit of a tour, right? But again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for this awareness, because this does not only translate into here, it translates to the south side, the west side, the stories we're trying to tell. And let's face it, we're trying to cultivate with our young people the next generation of conversations. So thank you guys.